In the quiet heart of Texas, where the sun beats down on dusty plains, lived an old rancher named Samuel. His life was a simple rhythm of sunrises, hard work, and lonely sunsets. His ranch, once a thriving hub of activity, had grown as quiet as his own heart. His wife, Martha, had passed years ago, and his children had long since moved to the city, leaving Samuel with only memories and the vast, empty land. He was a man etched by time, his face a roadmap of long days and quiet sorrows. Every morning he'd walk the fence-line, a ritual as old as his time on the ranch, checking for breaks, mending what was broken, a metaphor for his own life. One crisp morning, something was different. Against the familiar silhouette of his wooden fence, a new shape stood out. A horse, but this was no ordinary horse. It was a magnificent creature, its coat the color of fresh cream, its mane and tail a cascade of shimmering silver. It stood with a regal stillness, an air of untamed majesty about it. Samuel had heard tales of such a horse, a legendary phantom of the plains, whispered about in local bars and around campfires. They called it the ghost of the prairie, a wild spirit that no one could ever catch. And yet, here it was, tied to his fence with a simple rope. Samuel approached cautiously, his heart thumping a strange, forgotten rhythm. The horse watched him with intelligent, dark eyes, calm and unafraid. It was then that he noticed it, a small, weathered leather pouch tied to the saddle. His gnarled fingers fumbled with the knot, a sense of nervous anticipation bubbling up inside him. What could this mean? Who would leave such an animal, a legend, on his property? Inside the pouch was a single, folded piece of paper, an old-fashioned letter sealed with wax. His hands trembled slightly as he broke the seal. The handwriting was elegant, a flowing script that felt both familiar and foreign. The letter began, "My dearest Samuel." His breath caught in his throat. Only one person had ever called him that. He read on, his eyes scanning the words that seemed to lift off the page and wrap around his soul. "If you are reading this, it means I have kept my promise. Do you remember that night under the stars when we were just kids? You told me you'd build a ranch, and I told you that one day I would bring you the most beautiful horse in the world, a horse worthy of the king of the cowboys." The words transported him back 60 years. He was a young man again, full of dreams, lying on a blanket next to a girl with eyes like the summer sky. Her name was Eleanor, his first love, the girl who had moved away before he could ever tell her how he truly felt. They had made a silly, youthful promise, a pact sealed with a whisper and a shared dream. A promise he had long since buried under decades of hard work, love, loss, and the quiet weight of a life lived. He had forgotten all about it, but she hadn't. The letter continued, explaining her life. She had traveled the world, lived a full and adventurous life, but she had never married. She had always remembered the boy with the big dreams in Texas. She had spent years searching for the perfect horse, a descendant of the legendary Spanish Mustangs, and had raised this one, whom she named Promise, just for him. "I am old now, Samuel," she wrote. "My adventuring days are over. I wanted Promise to go to someone who would understand his spirit. I wanted a piece of my heart to return to the place where I first left it." Tears welled in Samuel's eyes, blurring the elegant script. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like an old man whose story was over. He felt like that young boy again, full of hope and a future that stretched out like the open prairie. The letter explained that Eleanor was living in a small retirement community just a few towns over. She wrote, "I don't know if you're the same boy I remember, but I'd like to find out. If you're willing, come find me. Bring Promise with you." Samuel looked from the letter to the magnificent horse. Promise nickered softly as if he understood. A lifetime of loneliness seemed to lift from Samuel's shoulders. The quiet on his ranch was no longer empty. It was peaceful, filled with the potential of a new beginning. He had spent so long mending fences, trying to keep the world out, but now, a forgotten promise had opened a gate he thought was locked forever. This wasn't just a horse. It was a message from the past, a beacon for the future. The next morning, Samuel didn't just walk his fence lane. He saddled up Promise. The horse felt strong and alive beneath him, a perfect match for the renewed vigor in his own heart. He rode not with the stoop of an old man, but with the straight-backed posture of a cowboy with a destination. He was on his way to find Eleanor to close a circle that had been left open for 60 years. He didn't know what he would find, or what they would say to each other after a lifetime apart, but it didn't matter. The silence of his life had been broken by the sound of a promise kept. As he rode across the plains, the sun warming his face, Samuel realized that the greatest legends aren't always the wild, untamable things. Sometimes they are the quiet promises we make, the connections we forge, and the incredible, surprising ways that love can find its way back home, even after a lifetime. The ranch was no longer an ending point, it was a starting line. And with a legendary horse as his companion and a long-lost love on the horizon, Samuel's greatest adventure was just beginning. This story reminds us that it's never too late for a new chapter. Hope can arrive in the most unexpected ways, sometimes tied to a fence post with a simple rope. It shows that even promises whispered under the stars 60 years ago can find their way home, proving that some things, like true connection, never truly fade. They just wait for the right moment to reappear and change everything. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales that warm the soul.